morning, everyone. Uh, Kindly confirm to me that you can all hear me. Are we good?
Hear you.
Okay, thank you. So, how are we doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you. How are you?
Okay, so Chidima, it's a pleasure to have you here on the show.
Hi, I hope you can hear
It's
me
a pleasure
clearly.
to have you here as well.
Hi,
So,
you
how is it going at our respective
one.
locations?
Yes. I can hear you clearly. I can hear you, Chidema, as well. Though it's buffer.
Great, I can hear you too. Is
Awesome.
buffering? I can see you guys fine.
Okay,
I hear you okay as well.
is buffering a little, but I'm sure the connection will stabilize in a little bit.
Okay, great.
Okay.
So today we'll be looking at a very, very interesting topic. And to all our guests out there who have joined us on today's session, we'd like to say welcome. We recognize your presence and we appreciate you taking out the time to join us on this amazing forum. Okay, so we're looking at employee dynamics and how it affects an organization and how the organization can still keep its focus in spite of the whole spectrum of activities and expectations that employees can have in an organization. So employees are coming with their own set of expectations and mindset of what the organization should do for them in order for them to be able to become a part of that family in the business and in order to be able to deliver on the business goals and business objectives on a rolling basis. And then the organization on its own part also has this expectation that has been well defined long before the employee came on board. And they are having all these KPIs that they are expecting to be fulfilled. But because human beings are not machines, human beings tend to need frequent Windows updates, tend to need frequent patches, tend to need support, tend to need emotional support, financial support, sometimes psychological support in order to be able to deliver on their job. And so we find organizations having the need to begin to be interested in their workforce beyond just the job that they do for the organization. So, in this regard, I want to ask, as opening statement from both of you, what has been your experience over the years in having to deal with all the dynamism that employees bring to the table, and yet, as guardians of the business objective, being able to still achieve the business goals, which is the keeping focus part. So I'll go with Chidima first. Chidima.
Oh, thank you, James. A very important question. And I get asked this a lot, especially by owners, as a sense of like how much we do for the employees and still keep ourselves profitable, because sometimes it seems as if there's so many things coming up every day. There's so many things employees need. You don't want to be blasted on social media as a toxic work environment or a toxic, but at the end of the day, people are not just a set of skills, they're a compendium of different facets of their lives. And it's very important that you recognize the whole person. So yes, there might be some cost associated with it, but it's very important to ensure that you have healthy, engaged employees that are committed to the work they're doing, as opposed to putting employees in an environment where they feel that they are burnt out and things like that. So, of course, you must be at the forefront of understanding what the needs of your employees are. And I feel there's a system in which you can put that in place that it will not be too maybe financially draining for companies, but also that employees will feel that they are heard. So once you put those mechanisms in place, first of all, and ensure that you're asking the right questions and you're being in the forefront of getting the feedback from employees as to what it is that they need. And then, of course, be committed to putting your money where your mouth is. You see some companies, they say wonderful things about their employees, but when it comes to bringing out the financial backing for whoever is driving it, whether that's HR or whoever is, then that's when things kind of fall apart. So companies should ensure that they're doing that. Is very important. Recognize that employees are whole people, and then do what needs to be done. That's what I would say for that.
Oh, great. Uwa, what do you want to say to this? What's been your experience in this regard?
Chima has pretty much summarized what most active HR professionals experience when it comes
Yeah.
to balancing, the workforce human needs and then of course the business needs. It's a fine line, a very thin line that one has to straddle, and it can be tricky. But if you, from my experience, if you've got the culture right,
Mhm.
then chances are everything else sort of falls into place. Everything else feels easier if you promoted a culture of ease, a culture of open communication, a culture of mutual respect. And when I talk about communication, I always say that um, you cannot communicate too much, especially with your employees, especially with the position of the organization. If the organization is struggling, let them know. If the organization is doing well, let them know. It's been I think one of the places that I worked with that kind of communication, open communication. Um, the employee satisfaction and employee engagement levels were really high. We rarely had people leave. We weren't paying the best, but people were happy to be there, to work there, because they understood that their personal needs would be addressed, even as the focus is also on business objectives. So because they had a clear picture of the business goals and the business state at every point in time, they knew not to be ridiculous in their requests. I mean, you can't come to a business that is struggling and say, okay, we want, an increase, because there's
Exactly.
there's no logic in that. So I believe strongly that communication, um, a culture of communication, open and honest communication, two-way communication is very, very important. Of course, your policies and your processes are going to lay the foundation for that culture. But if you get that right, I believe you get pretty much everything else right.
Oh, great. Thank you for that. So now tell me, Uwa, compared to if we look at your experience when we look at cross-border experience, can we say that this is the same for being in Nigeria and being in Europe? Can we say that these expectations from employees is a universal concept and is not just a cultural thing?
It is a universal concept from my experience. Even when I worked in Nigeria, one of the places I worked in was Unilever, and Unilever is a global conglomerate, I swear. And the cultures were similar across Unilever Global. So if you go to Unilever UK, you go to Unilever Bangladesh, the culture was essentially the same, of course, to varying degrees of success. But the employee expectations are usually the same, because humans are humans the world over. People want to be seen, people want to be appreciated, people want to be treated as valuable. So it's the same everywhere. And any organization, regardless of geographical location, that gets it right, you'll find that your people will stick with you and that they would be happy with what you're doing.
Okay. Chidima, I want to ask, in terms of the workforce that you've had to interact with, would you say that the generation gaps of those who are within a certain generation category and those who are in the most recent generation category, that the expectations of these two uh, categories of people is essentially the same in spite of the shift in mindsets that they have with regards to work?
Great question. Generations play such an important part in how processes work, and even in terms of the engagement, let me call it the engagement. What the Generation X, or even now the millennials, because the millennials are kind of crossing over from the initial, oh, they were so difficult to deal with in the workforce. They're actually now crossing over into the more stable section of the workforce. And that's because they're now getting to the age where they're settling down, they're getting married, they're having kids. So their perspectives are kind of changing. And that's the beauty of generations. Each generation comes with its own benefits and skills. Initially, it's difficult. There might be some teething issues. But once you cross that, it becomes easier. So now you're having your Gen Zs that are coming into the workforce, a whole different kettle of fish entirely. And they need instant gratification. Unlike before, if you have a Gen X person, the person is saying, "Oh, in 5 years, I know I can do this," and then after that, 8 years later, these guys are not. I mean, 5 years. I'm not going to give you 5 years in your organization. And if they are, by then they must be the head of the department or a VP for running a huge. You see it. So when you're trying to engage people like that with that sort of mindset, you have to first of all value them, as equal contributors. In our own time, we're willing to do the work and pace ourselves and realize that after time, you earn the right to have certain. But this generation, they're not ready to. They feel they deserve it at this moment. So strategies that you have to develop when dealing with them is a little bit different. We have to, first of all, as HR people, deconstruct how we have been taught that engagement and rewards work. Have to deconstruct. Then now look at ways that we can reward people for things that they do, like, within teams, on projects, give people exciting projects, maybe even remove those titles that before, when you give you a head of department or a manager, it meant something. Now everybody can be a manager. Like, what does it really mean? So we really need to ways that we can show that we value them, because they do bring very interesting, important skills to every organization. First of all, value that. It's not only age that warrants, whatever path, and then try and find a way that we can engage them in their own, in the way that they will understand and value. So as Owen has said, really have open communication, have good dialogue. What are the things that are important to you? What are the things that you like? How would this job fit into you? Just a quick one before I hand up. When you're interviewing somebody from different generations, it's very different. For the generation X's and even millennials, you want them to sell themselves to you, and then you determine whether they are right fit. With Gen Zs, you are selling your company to them. They have to figure out why they even want to work in a place like your company. So right from recruitment onto onboarding, into their participation within any team, we really, as HR professionals, have to begin to rethink how we do that. From interview, you're trying to tell them to see the future with you, and then when they come in, you value their contribution, make them feel, part of a team. And then if you have them for a year or 2 years, I think your company has done very well. I don't really see how you're going to engage Gen Z past that point. So when we used to have all those sort of surveys, you're saying, "Oh, they stayed in my company 10 years, 15 years." I don't see that as a reality for the future. That might something you just have to forget about. So yes, it's very important to pay attention to the generation and then adapt your HR practices to suit the relevant ages and the things that are important to them.
Thank you for that. Now, I want to ask, does this mean, therefore, that in changing without changing our business goals, without having to yield to every employee complaint, how do we still ensure that the company still fulfills its business objectives, satisfies its stakeholders, and is still contributing positively to the world it operates in with all these volatile employee situations?
I think the first approach would be not to see focusing on employee needs as a disadvantage, is rather than it is an advantage, because it is your people who are going to help you achieve those business objectives. So you need to find a middle ground. I always say find a middle ground. And of course, everything starts with the kind of people that you're bringing into your organization. So I always say that the entire process needs to be broken down into 3 pillars: your people, your processes, and your place. And of course, your place can incorporate your culture as well. So from the get-go, you need to determine the qualities that your people should have. Have a person specification, the kind of people you want in your environment, in your organization. So when you start with that approach, it sort of lays a groundwork, a foundation for the people you bring in. And then it is those people that, I mean, the intention would be that it is people who can see the vision of the company, that can identify with it, relate with it, and work with you towards it. And of course, if you are communicating effectively with them, then there's no way there would be a disadvantage to you because you pretty much laid your cards on the table. And if you meet basic needs and add a little extra, it can't be a disadvantage because you have to spend money, you have to invest money to make money. If you invest in the right places, your people, your processes, your products and services, eventually everybody's going to be happy, all your stakeholders. And when you're thinking stakeholders, your people are your stakeholders as well. They're a very important part of the stakeholders, not just the people who sit in the boardroom. So we need to, yes, I know we always say you can't please everybody. You're not jollof rice or you're not white wine, but you still need to find a way to find a balance to please at least each category of stakeholders 80% of the time. And like Chidima mentioned, surveys usually help with that as well. You need to have people have a way of expressing their needs to you because human needs, employee needs are really, and in the past 5 years, they've changed so drastically. So you can't begin to depend on past research and past processes. You need to keep your eye on the ball, and the only way to do that is to ask people what do they need, what do they want. If you look at job vacancy ads nowadays, at least in this part of the world, it looks like a proper marketing tool. It's no longer just we are looking for so person with this number of experiences. You are like Chidima said, you are literally marketing the organization, marketing the manager who's going to lead this role, which is why organizations are also encouraging their managers and team leaders to put themselves out there as ambassadors of the organization because a lot of the times employees people go where they see people who are already in the organization that they value and respect. So they will gravitate towards that. So if your team, if your people also picture themselves as attractive, not just the organization saying we are attractive, but your people who work with you are also saying, I'm attractive, this company is attractive, I love working here, then people are going to gravitate towards you. And then everybody, it's easier to get those same similar thinking employees when you have already a mold that attracts the same kind of people. They say like minds think alike.
Wow, thank you for that. So now this brings me to another question. Typically, when a business is set up, the stakeholders are looking at all kinds of assets that they need to work with. They look at fixed assets. They look at other kinds of assets. And then we finally came to the point where we realized that people are also assets, right? Now, every asset has its lifespan, and every asset has some maintenance costs to it. Now, for very large organizations, it's usually not a much of a brainer on how to take care of people. But for smaller size organizations, SMEs, what would you say is what advice would you give to SMEs who don't have those kind of processes? For example, the process might just be in the head of the business owner. And it is not documented anywhere. It is not in the head of the employees. And then the employer has an expectation. The employees are falling short of it. And then there happens to be this combustion of emotions, and employees begin to see their employers as a different species of human being, and employers begin to see the employees as a lazy bunch of people. How do we manage this, especially for SMEs? Because I know a lot of SMEs, business owners, and the HRs of these organizations are in this session. What would you advise?
You asking me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so first of all, I mean, if you've got a vision in your head and then you're expecting people to follow you, that's I don't know how to um what polite word to use for it. So I'm just going to say you can't have it in your head. People are not witches. They're not going to know what's in your head. You're going to have to voice it out. Communication. I think I tend to sound like a broken record when I keep saying communication, communication, but it is so valuable. The impact of communication is very huge. So you need to communicate, and it can't just be verbal because your idea today can be different from your idea tomorrow. So you've got
Hmm.
to have it written down. It's got to be in black and white, which is where your processes come into place, your policies come into place. Now, if you're not equipped to do it, if you're not skilled enough to do it, then get someone who can
Hmm.
tap into your head, bring out that vision that you've got for where your business is going, for the kinds of people you want in your organization, what you want them to be able to achieve within specific timelines. Get someone who can, there are consultants everywhere who can do it, you know. Hire someone who can do it. Hire a good HR manager who can help you eh, how will I say, turn that vision into reality, into a picture that your people can buy into, that they can key into. And then, of course, you have performance management systems to ensure that we're all on track. If you've got this written down, it's easy to hold your people accountable and it's easy for them to hold you as a business owner accountable. Now, a lot of business owners don't want to hear that they're being held accountable, but you have to be accountable to the people who work with you. They're spending their time, they're spending their resources, they're spending their life keying into your vision. So you've got to be accountable to them as well. So that God complex, especially from our part of the world, needs to be eroded a little, such that you can communicate the right information with your people. And of course, have respect for them, for their time, for their input. And that way they can get the same out of you.
Okay, thank you for that. So I want to ask. This goes to Chidima. Now, who has mentioned quite a handful of things, and I know that to envision something is usually easy, but execution, implementation, following through can be a bit of a difficulty. Reason being that it now depends on the discipline of the person at the top of that business, and also the effectiveness and how committed the other sub leaders in the strata to that overall vision and to delivering value down to the employees to get the best output out of them. So my question is this. Here we have, if an employer has said that we are committed to you, we are not going to, we're not going to cut salaries, we are going to provide these benefits, and then employees come back and say these benefits are not enough, it's not really what we need, we want more. What would you recommend to small businesses now? How do they manage that? Because we find that when employees are emotionally dissatisfied, next thing they start using your internet to search for other jobs. so so now that creates for each organization high employee, there's a word for it, attrition, where uh, the business finds itself always hiring new people, and new people that you hire take time to bring up to the level of this person who is now threatening, who is now holding you and threatening hail and brimstone of exiting. Sometimes they don't even communicate it, it's in their heart. And if an HR person is paying attention, you would actually know, that something like this is likely to happen as a fallout of a very recent situation that has occurred. Without trying to expand it myself, you know, how have you treated such scenarios in the past? And what advice would you give to business owners?
Okay, I'm going to talk about it from the Nigerian perspective, which is where I have experience with. The first thing is that many business owners, many SMEs, uh, they usually have a very interesting relationship with their employees. First of all, they expect their employees to be as committed and as dedicated to their vision as they are. And I always tell them, you are the vision carrier. That's not your employee's job. You can sell the vision to them and then they can buy into it, but it's not their role to be the cushion of your vision. That's the first thing. So it's always a misplaced expectation. Some business owners they're not as committed. Look at even this as yeah, you're the owner of the business. This person came in for a job. There's a particular role and supposed to be focused on doing just that. So the first thing is a misplaced expectation. So the owners always have due expectation for their employees, and they are always disappointed when the employees cannot meet up to this level. It's usually up of the person's job. It's usually bigger than what the person can accommodate. So that's the first thing. Then the owners, SMEs as well, always feel like, look at how much I am doing. That's the business owner. Again, you are the business owner. It is your job. Usually, it's your job to either expand the business reach or bring business or customers. If this person is not customer facing, you can't say something like, oh, this is so, you can look at how much business I'm bringing in. I'm the one that is doing everything. I mean, you employed me as the admin officer of the front desk. Like, I'm just trying to do my job here. So there's that again. So business owners, I find in Nigeria, I feel, of course, and we understand that the environment is so difficult for businesses to thrive. So they're dealing with so many issues, trying to keep their business afloat. And usually they transfer a lot of these expectations, sometimes unduly, to the employees. Yeah. Then secondly, of course, these employees are just still employees who have general employee needs. And of course, they would like that to be recognized by their employer. But the employers are dealing with all other big issues. They already have that undue expectation. So anything that the employees are requesting for just seems like an excessive thing. Can you imagine what they're asking me for when businesses is going down? I'm paying diesel, I'm paying rent, I'm paying. Yes, we understand that. But these employees are still people that are living in society and still have to meet their own needs. So as I said before, and we've repeated so many times in this dialogue, you're going to have open and honest conversation. It's very unfair when I see business owners, SMEs, even not even SMEs as well, telling employees how things are so difficult, but you're changing out your car to a Ferrari. I mean, like, you just bought your wife, the latest, so, and we see these things happen all the time. Employees are not stupid, So on one hand, they're telling you this is so difficult. But God, we're looking at you now. How difficult is this? So when you're open and you're honest, you're going to have to be somebody as a business owner that is willing to strip away the mask. Now, nobody you should now be impoverished because you have a business. But be honest. And another thing, there's no organization I've worked for, international or otherwise, where employees don't know everything that is going on in their life. No matter how you try to mask it, hide it, they know. They know the income that you're receiving. They know the business that you have. They can calculate for you all these clients you have and how much you guys have made. When you're then telling that sort of employee that, oh, things are so hard, therefore I can't even meet my obligations of payment of salary at a due time every month that people can plan with, or things are so bad that you've done the same job and you don't have adequate healthcare, you don't have HMO that makes sense, you don't have basic allowances. It's not right. You're not going to get the best of your employees because employees already know that there's the trust relationship between the employer and employee has already been damaged. So I'm just going to make these people, I'm going to be difficult in a workforce. There might not be formal unions in your organization, but staff will unionize. They will make your work difficult. And then employers also think it's easy for you to just sack somebody and get somebody else. There's a time of knowledge that person will need to acquire to produce at the level as that person that left. And HR people must be able to cost it for employers. If this staff leaves today, this is the cost, not just the recruitment cost of hiring, the time to fill has a cost. The recruitment will have the time that person will need to get up to speed will have a cost, no matter how knowledgeable that person is. There's an organizational knowledge that person does not have. So when you cost that, and what the person is asking you for is a benefit that is even a fraction. I will tell my employers and look at it. This person goes, this is the cost it's going to expend for you. Another 100 or 700 or 800,000. This is minus the person's salary. I'm just talking about the additional cost. If this person is asking for a 200,000 increase, I think, sir, that it's better for us to just pay this person this month. So we need to be, as HR people, be ready to have matrices and data that employers can look at. There's no point of saying, I beg inside here. Just show you the numbers clearly. This person is asking you for an increase. This person has been here for this amount of time. Do you understand? As in, let's be real. People are people. And don't talk to your employers or treat them like they're idiots. That's the worst thing you can do. And your employees will frustrate you. They can staff know how to frustrate you. They can be present but absent. You know what that means? That they're there, but they are not really there. So I always tell SMEs that look, that thing that you're trying to do, first of all, that's not their role. It's not their job to be vision carriers. You will carry your vision enough that people can buy into the vision by how committed you are to it. That's not their job. Secondly, to do their job. Whatever you employ them to do, let them do just that. SMEs in Nigeria have a very bad habit. One person, you employ the person as a HR person, the person will now be business development, the person will be admin, the person will be, on the same salary of the person is not your family member. Why do they have shares in your company? Why do you feel they should carry all these different things? So allow them to do their jobs and then be fair to them. Be fair to your staff. If you're fair to your staff, usually they will produce for you. They will do what they need to do when they know that you're fair. When you treat them like they're not smart and then you do all sorts of things with them, they will frustrate you. So I say let there be trust in the employee-employer relationship. Allow people to do their job.
Okay. Oh, it appears we lost Chidima's audio there, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Chidima, it appears we lost your audio a little bit.
Proceed, perhaps I can chip in a little.
Yes. Okay.
Because I found it sort of crucial. And towards the tail end, Chidima mentioned some things that I had, sort of filed away in my head that I'll talk about, which is numbers, data. HR has access to an astronomical cache of data that is rarely used. So that's where your data comes into play, numbers. So if you have an employee who's sort of holding you to ransom because they have certain needs that aren't being met, or they had expectations that have fallen short, then you can use the numbers to determine how much value they have given the organization. So it's not for the employee to say, oh, I'm bringing in this volume of business, or I've added much value. If you've got, and I always go back to your policies and your processes, if you've got that in place, then you can actually bring it out in black and white, in numbers, and say to these employees or the business owner that this is how much value this person is bringing, or this person isn't bringing in that much value anyway. And if we weigh the cost, or if we calculate the cost, bringing in someone else in the long term generate more value for the organization. And then one of the ways you can preempt or be proactive about handling the potential of this to happen is your performance management system. You have to be able to measure performance, measure it in a way that is clear to everybody. And I always say to organizations that have appraisals once a year or twice a year, it's not enough to just have that official one or twice. Have your managers conduct one-on-ones regularly, so that at every point in time, the business, the team leader, the employee knows where they stand as regards how much value they're bringing to the table. You can't wait until when 6 months down the line or a year to tell the employee, oh, you haven't been performing great. It's not even valid. It's not even beneficial to the organization to do that. Then why keep paying this person for 12 months when you know that they are not bringing value? You have to make sure that they're at every point in time they understand. And if it's done right, I've worked in organizations where before appraisal time comes, employees can tell you what their rating is going to be. They can tell you if they're going to get a bonus, how much that they can calculate it themselves because they can, it's so meticulously done, calculated that everybody knows at every point in time where they stand. So it's got to be that, that precise, your process.
Wow, fantastic. Thank you for that contribution there. All right. Chidima, I want to come back to you again. And this time around, it
Hey,
speaks to
hope
the
you can hear
hiring
me.
process. Okay. You can hear me, right?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes,
can.
I can hear you loud and clear as well.
Great.
Okay.
Fantastic.
So now,
Hiring
when it
process. I get
comes,
that.
yes, yeah, exactly. When it comes to the hiring process, there was a post I saw. I think I saw it probably on Hua's timeline, and so you are conducting an interview, and 5 minutes into the interview, you find that the prospective employee, is not a cultural fit, and the question now goes: do you continue to fill in the rest of the interview time, or do you bring the interview to an end? So now, no good answer was provided. I think the poll result was a 50-50.
Yeah, more or less. It was a poll and there were some interesting takes, but I'd love to hear what Chidema thinks.
So now HRs are torn between being kind, being warm, trying to also help the psyche of the other person across the table in order to let them know if they are not a fit, to give them insight into what makes them not to be a fit so that they can work on that uh, in preparation for their next job, you know. And now for cultural fit for organizations and SMEs, not even just the very big businesses now, do you sometimes find that an employee post interview, having been engaged, is not a fit? However, the person is a top performer. You get what I'm saying? It's not a fit culturally. This
Okay.
person has more frequent issues with coworkers, has more demands, financial demands, time demands, not usually available when you need them, but they are turning up the results. So for SMEs, not really for the big players now, how would you recommend that they handle such a situation?
Okay. Are you done with the question?
Yes.
Okay, great. That must have been a very interesting poll. I would ask the question how in minutes seems a very short time to determine someone's culture fit. But anyway, this is a lot in interviews, and um, you have to be careful that the interviewers are people too. I hear sometimes this culture fit is just that you don't like the person. The person kind of rubs you up the wrong way. The place of no, yes, I mean, but people interview, not robots. Place of this person doesn't really go with how, the kind of person I am or what I would like. But all organizations that make that sort of assertion, I do ask them whether they've actually spec their culture. Is this something that they actually have as a blueprint, or is it something that they feel they? Because if it's not something that is spec, it's difficult for you to ascertain in an interview whether that person has a culture fit. Every interview has two aspects. Of course, there's the technical aspect, which is can the person do the job, and then this culture aspect and behavior and all of that. Many companies, and especially SMEs, have not even spec. They don't even know what that is. They kind of have an idea of how they want people to behave. And in an interview, unless that person is coming in as a culture champion or something that the person is responsible for culture is something that can be acquired. It's something that can be learned. It's something that somebody absorbs. Because remember that the culture of the organization that you're saying this person has is not a fit for, is not a fit for, is not how would I put it now? It's something that can be learned. It's just the same way you have people who have lived in the US or me say, you live in Nigeria for many years, you behave a certain way, you shout at drivers, you come out in traffic lights, you behave on that. You go abroad, you do, is that how you behave? You don't behave like that because the culture of that place has been defined by policies, rules, regulations, even sometimes awareness, training. It's something that can be acquired. We do assessments in my organization for culture fit, but is not to how do I put it now? Is not to be used as um, a reason not to hire somebody. For us to know how we need to develop the person. Now, unless the person is exhibiting totally destructive, I mean, when I mean with culture fit, maybe you're using insultive language, or you're abrasive, or you're in a way that, well, I don't even know what you can even display to show an interviewer that no, 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 we cannot continue with this interview. I don't really think it's a very um, fair assessment if it has not been actually documented and spec that these are the kind of people that we need. Because you don't want to also be an organization that is not actually is not really fulfilling your own diversity mandate. People are different. We work in different organizations. If I work in a Nigerian bank where I'm in marketing, and then I now come to my salary, maybe people are all nice, and your own business development is more of a higher type of, oh, we know you, we love you. It's not the same thing as a cutthroat business environment. So if I've worked there for 5 years and you're coming into this new place, of course it's going to be different. HR people, we need to be careful that you now don't become the person that is instituting, um, what's the word is escaping me now? Stereotypes into your workforce and calling it culture, hiding under it that we like this sort of people. There's a psychological concept called groupthink. When all of you are the same and you think the same and you behave the same, your ability to innovate becomes vastly reduced, greatly reduced. And even when people are about to make a mistake as well, because all of you are of the same sort of mindset and thinking, it's difficult for anyone to spot that this is a problem we're about to encounter. So it's good to have a really diverse workforce. And in diversity, sometimes they are not in behaviors and ways that you're used to. As long as it's not be disruptive. One, you it properly, know what they are looking for. Two, you have to be able to see what the person is doing or exhibiting that is greatly different from the culture that you have. And then three, if the person has the requisite skills, be ready to put training, coaching, development, sometimes even behavioral analysis and things like that into it to see the person succeed. Because you really don't want to get into the place where, because I find, unless you're a trained strategist, 5 minutes, you really have to tell me what you did, what you saw, what the person exhibited that was so strong that you said this person is not a culture fit. I see HR people do it a lot, and I always tell them, well, what gave you the right to make that assessment? You might not like the person might rub you the wrong way, or the person might have done something that was really wow, but is it enough to disqualify the person from a job? Now let's situate that into our country as a Nigerians. We know we are. We have our own kind of behavior and things like that. I've been in panels as well that were with expatriates, and somebody has made a comment like this: an expatriate. And I told the person, she's not aggressive. We speak in a manner, we speak in a manner that's forceful. Our voice on a general is even loud. The average Nigerian person speaks with a high octave. It doesn't mean the person is aggressive. And that was Lily kept saying, no, no, she comes across as very aggressive. So what I just want us to do when we say the person does have a cultural fit is, first of all, make sure that you're trained to make that assessment. Two, make sure that your culture has actually been set so that you know what it is that you're looking for. And then we have to be very mindful that we are not contract whatever diversity or um, non-stereotypical behavior that we're trying to actually um, ensure that we have in the workforce. I think that's very important. And then we could bring it now back to SMEs. Small businesses sometimes don't have this manner of detail. This is more in more established organizations. They have diversity policies, champions, and all of that who are trying to look for things. Because if you are on the panel, and that kind of assessment, if an established organization, somebody can take you up ethics tribunal, diversity, they can write something, oh, this person didn't like me. And if it's investigated and it's true, I wonder what you're going to say in 5 minutes, what you saw that made you make such a strong assessment.
Hmm.
Then we don't even have that. So I just try and get people, give them the requisite training. But if you are in the panel and you are so convinced that the person doesn't meet that criteria, I wouldn't say you should end the interview. I think for all people, you have a duty of care and of responsibility really to let the person get feedback. I mean, like, there's a reason why we're not progressing with this interview. And you know that as if that's it. I think you can spare 2 or 3 minutes to give feedback. I do it a lot in all my interviews. There are many people I've interviewed, and honestly, it's not even behavioral fit. Maybe not they're not fit for the role. Then I tell them, oh, this is the reason why. That oh, this is what we see, and we're still going to review it. But from this assessment, I'm not really sure. Based on you must be able to give information, and then if it's culture, if you're really unsure that it's culture, the person's behavior is not bad. It just does not fit whatever it is that you people expect that you need. If that's the reason, So it's also important for the person to know because James, in the next interview, so that the next interview, some company is looking for that sort of behavior or whatever it is. Yeah, that might be something that the person is looking for. Just for your own company, this is what we expect as a culture. This is what we're looking for. But from this interview, you're not exhibiting. Because remember, this is just an interview. The person could be nervous. The person could have been ill-advised by whoever prepped them for that interview. The person might be, if I give the example of aggression again, like I used earlier on, the person might actually be naturally timid. But the person that you're going to emotional, so make sure you show them you know what they're saying. The person came in already gone. That might not be the person. So yeah, which is why feedback is so important. You say, oh, in our culture here, for instance, we like people that are a little bit more, calmer, more soft-spoken. You seem like not to use aggressive, but you probably use another word. And the person will say, well, actually, no. The person will give you the opportunity you hear the opportunity to hear what the person has to say. And the person will say, actually, I'm not like that. But my HR consultant who's going for this role has told me I need to come out. So you tell them, take a moment. I've done this many times. I said, I'm taking a moment and let's rewind. Let's start this interview again. And then we begin.
Yes.
We must be empathic. We must be fair. Like at the end of the day, what are we trying to achieve here? I'm trying to make sure I get the best person for my company. You might be the best person, just warehouse in a casing that might not suit what we're looking for. And really, if it's established and the person doesn't have it, there's so much interventions that can be done. I mean, there's coaching, leadership coaching, executive coaching, there's behavioral consultation. I mean, there's therapy if required. This is the same thing you said about going back to the whole person. The person is not just one year. And technically, that person could be fantastic. So why would you forgo that just because you want somebody like you? Sometimes the easiest way is not the best way.
Awesome, tremendous.
In a little.
Yes, please go ahead.
The example Chidinma gave about Nigerians who misbehave at home and then go abroad and act right, and that's because there's regulations, there's laws and all that. I think it's not just that because in Nigeria there are regulations and laws. It's because there are consequences to actions that are executed. So you don't want employees. I mean, if I turn that on its head and put it in the workplace, you don't want employees who are only acting right because it's because of the laws, because of the consequences, or they could lose their job, they could get some sort of disciplinary action. You want people who would exhibit it because it is second nature to them. So when I'm thinking culture, I'm not thinking in terms of your communication style. That's by the way. I mean, you can have people in meetings who would never say a word, but they bring value in other ways. And then you have people in meetings who are always the loudest, and probably half the time all they're doing is actually motivating the rest. So yes, diversity is great, but there are certain things that you cannot compromise on. So for instance, let me use integrity as an example. It's something you can't say, okay, we'll train integrity into you. You cannot. I mean, I've had someone say when I worked at a consulting firm, people are, sometimes they pad the accounts, they do this, let's give them training. How do you train people to be honest?
How do
It's
you
impossible.
test for honesty
So in integrity,
in an interview?
you can find, there are certain, I've been in interviews where
How?
someone says, oh, these are my qualifications, these are my experiences. And at the end of the day, you find out that the CV isn't theirs.
Hmm.
I saw that at a telecoms company in Nigeria. So you can find out some of these. And when I'm saying culture, it's not in terms of how you dress or how you speak. I mean, considering where I am, I pretty much stand out half the time, you know, exactly. But I'm not getting jobs because of that. Where I work currently, I work in the aviation industry. You have to be able to stay long. They sort of look for people who are passionate about the industry. So you could be good at your job, but there are certain tests and assessments that we run, and you could even come in eventually. A few months down the line, because of how regulated it is, some people don't stay. It's too much for them. But there are people who live and breathe it. They'll wake up in the middle of the night, they're still thinking, okay, this new regulation, how are we going to, maneuver? So those are the kind of little things, well, not so little, that I would
Interpretation.
say, you can't train into people. But yes, I do
That's
agree
not quite
that you
corporate, right?
cannot, put people into
Is that
stereotypes,
corporate?
and that diversity is crucial, extremely crucial, because then you can get the best of different kinds of people, different perspectives, different experiences and cultures.
Wow, thank you very much for that. Now, on the diversity note, that is where I want to wrap it up now. Now, I know you are in a climb where diversity is not just a buzzword. It is something that that has to be practiced, and there has to be evidence to show for it. And we are in a climb where, for now, it is still a buzzword. Now, perhaps, how do you handle the situation where an employee, now it's a different thing if you were expecting someone for a role and it comes to the interview cross-dressed, and then it is he's a guy, but he has shown up in all this female attire. How do you handle that situation? So I want to look at it from your side of the world, and we want to look at it from our side of the world. And then also, you have one who complies at the interview during the interview process. There is an expectation. So comes properly dressed and everything, gets absorbed into the organization properly, and then now comes to let you know that I actually am male, but I actually identify as female. And when I try to go to the female restroom, a lot of issues came up. So how do we, if that ever crosses into the border here in Nigeria, how do we handle that? And how do you currently handle that at your end? Let me start with Uwa. How do you handle that at your end?
Well, here, I mean, it's pretty much a given that you accept people however they are. While I've not experienced the cross dressing, most people turn it. I mean, the most you would probably see are a guy with polished nails, maybe lipstick and all, and it's commonplace. In a situation where the gender is being factored, like a cross dresser or someone who identifies as different. What we do, my company currently, we have unisex restrooms. So it's open to either gender, male or female. You can use that one. So that's one way to manage that situation. But I think most people are, would I say, professional enough to strike a balance. So you don't have to be at work all, while addressing. However, sexual orientation, gender, everyone just pretty much just looks at it. Okay, is the work getting done? Yes. Are you getting along with your colleagues? Yes. Okay,
Okay.
it's not a factor.
Okay. So that brings me to Chideba. In Nigeria, it is not yet a thing, acceptable practice. But if it does crop up in an organization, what advice would you give to that organization, either SME or an enterprise?
Okay, well, for Nigeria, it's actually against the law. So it's actually a criminal I mean, so can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes, clearly.
You guys are first. Okay, great. So in Nigeria, it's actually a criminal offense. So organizations will be hard pressed to be able to deal with that within their policies. But if you're working in a multinational and then the main organization is in a different country that allows that, then you have, even though you're in Nigeria, will have to merge some of those policies. Of course, you might have that. So if you're working in that kind of organization, you have someone that cross-dresses, then you're going to need to ensure that person is supported within the work environment because your policies allow for that. The only drawback from that is because you're then situated in a country that has a law that is actually against that, then it means all employees within their right to also report that they have somebody in the organization. So it's going to be a very difficult thing for a Nigerian company to deal with. So as Ua said, I mean, you have to be a professional. You have to actually have a chat with HR about it. We're not trying to say you can't express yourself, but within this environment, this is what we can do to support you. This is also what you can do to ensure that you're not victimized or bullied or reported or arrested or any of those things as well. So a lot of compromise and dialogue we need to go about because of the country in which we live in. But if another country that the laws um, support that, well, you just have to make sure that you have things in place like genderless bathrooms, training, ensuring that people are allowed to express themselves, be who they are. I worked with a gentleman in a different country that used to he would wear a man's jacket on top, but a skirt on the bottom. And that's how he came to work. Initially, for me, of course, the first time I said I was really taken aback, but after a while, we forgot about it. Everybody moved on. Of course,
Exactly.
coming from Nigeria was a huge shock. And this was a senior manager. It wasn't like a junior, it was a senior. So the first time I wasn't sure. Was it a dress up day? Were we meant to wear fancy dress? But that was just how, that was just the way he was. So I even had to have some diversity training. But honestly, I was taken aback. I was so confused. But yeah, so of course, if you work in an environment like that, there will have been training that will have been done because I'll be coming from a that doesn't have that. They'll have to do some focus training for me and things like that. Of course, within the workforce, but in Nigeria, the laws that do not support that, you have to also speak with the person and tell them and make sure that they're also working safely and are not or arrested or anything like that.
Awesome. Thank
I,
you.
I
Thank
think
you.
I think
Yeah.
the key diversity issues Nigeria has is gender and gender age and what else? Maybe tribal, but usually gender and yeah.
Sexual orientation
Yes.
as
No,
well.
well, okay, maybe that's a thing now, but when we worked in Nigeria, it was mostly gender. I mean, those were the kind of diversity issues that I encountered that we had to work on, where you go to an executive meeting and 9 out of 10 are men, and one female. And then out of the 10, maybe eight of them are 50 and above or 60 and above. And the others are at least 40 and above or 45 and above. So those were the kind of diversity challenges we usually had. And then, of course, it also boils down to crafting a policy that actually finds ways to balance it out such that are we going to increase the number of females that we are bringing into the organization? Are we going to set up, I don't know, some sort of intervention for females who are doing well to fast track them into leadership
Mm.
positions, such that at the end of the day, we have, a younger pool of leadership team? Because there was a company I worked with, and we actually had to start doing that because whenever our foreign colleagues from abroad, from other countries came in, a VP of this or a regional director of that, we were people in their late 20s to early 30s. And then you had sitting at a meeting with their Nigerian counterparts, and these were
Um,
people in their 50s. It was ridiculous. And then sometimes females would come, and then everybody else, every other, brown skinned person was a male and 50 and above. And then you have this young 28, 29-year old who's the boss of them all. It looked, very, very odd. So we had to start actively trying to mitigate the imbalance in the diversity.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ua. Thank you so much, Chidima. It's been a pleasure having you here, having this wonderful, wonderful exchange to the benefit of our audience and also to my benefit. It's been a very fantastic learning session for me. I want to say thank you for making this possible. And to our guests online, I want to say thank you for joining us and for your comments and participation. And that's how we bring it to a wrap today. And we wish you a wonderful, wonderful day out there. So we'll be seeing you next month as well.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This was very enlightening. Thank you, Chidima.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chidima. Thank you.
Thank you as well.
Thank you, guests. Have a wonderful day.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
You only need to sign up, upload staff information, and complete a billing setup. Subsequently, payroll becomes fun for you in just 4 clicks. My salary is only available if you complete payroll on a monthly basis.
My salary costs nothing for installation or subscription. We make money by sharing transfer charges with our third-party payment partners. Therefore, for you to enjoy my salary for free, we insist that you use our payroll model to pay salaries of your employees.
My salary was designed to help business owners simplify HR processes. So whether you have 3 or 3,000 employees, the software is your go-to solution.
Charge of your HR process with My Salary. Payroll automation, leave management, tax and pension remittance, time tracking, and productivity improvement just got way easier with My Salary. Guess what? You get to do all this and more for free. Embrace a new world of work. Visit www.mysalary.com to sign up and onboard your employees. Do more with My Salary. Get started today.